It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso. We're live here on S3. Now, the 10th of May, it marks Global Move for Health Day, and the day promises to provide an opportunity to generate public awareness of the benefits of physical activity and the prevention of non-communicable diseases and promotes healthy behaviors and lifestyles. With us today to chat more about the importance of movement and the benefits of physical activity is biokineticist at Stellenbosch FC. It's Minato de Lange. It's so good to see you, Minato.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us. Well, look, I'll tell you this. I have had the privilege of coming through to Stellenbosch and watching all of the guys in action, but the amount of work and support that they get from people like you is absolutely incredible. So I know that we're in good hands, we're in good company today.
Yes, no, thank you.
Let's talk about International Mental Health Awareness Day and maybe look at the relationship between when you are so connected to your mental health and being able to tap into when your body physically needs help. Yeah. What is physical activity and how do you sort of tap into the awareness of your own movement?
Yeah, so movement's very important. I think all of us should just focus on trying to move more on a daily basis. It generally helps us improve our quality of living. It also helps us with daily activity. So a lot of older people,
correct,
small things like reaching for a cup at the top shelf, it helps with that. Something as small as getting in and out of a car or picking up your groceries. Physical activity helps with all of that. It also helps with maintaining independence. I think all of us, as we get older, we become dependent on people, but the more we stay active, the longer we'll stay independent. I'm sure you remember when you got your license, that feeling of independence for the first time, how great that was to feel independent.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all of us want to maintain that as long as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, you see it with young kids. As soon as they're able to move on their own and do things on their own, I mean, it's a new world opened up altogether. What would you say are some of the key benefits of physical movement?
So I would say benefits of exercising and everything that comes with movement. I would say there's a lot of benefits, but for me, one of the biggest benefits is quality of sleep. If you sleep better, you feel better. You can come to work feeling good and not drowsy or whatever.
Yeah.
Next, I would say it helps you improve your strength, or your fitness, or mobility, flexibility, depending on what you focus on. And others is circulation or functioning of the heart.
Yes.
As we all know, the heart is a muscle and it needs to be trained as well.
Absolutely.
And that also, the circulation helps with digestion of food as well as, like I said, getting oxygen to the brain if you're studying and all of those things.
You work with Stellenbosch FC, so I know that a lot of the work that you do is centered around seeing all of those guys really get physical, that physical exercise and the activity. Why is that so important? And yes, not all of us are soccer players. Like I am not. I just do rugby. Yeah. But what would you say for everybody else? Yeah. It's the importance of being physically active and exercising.
Yeah, so exactly like I said, not everyone has a job to train every single day, or a lot of the time of the day. Like us, we're sitting here now. We can't just go for a run anytime soon. But it is so important to stay active. And even if it's just starting with 10 minutes a day, starting with stretching, maybe the next day or 2 days later, go for a 10-minute walk or a 20-minute run or a swim. But just maintaining that and getting to that routine is extremely important.
I've even found something that I do so much of these days when I go to the mall is avoiding the escalators.
Exactly.
I pick the stairs.
100%.
Because it just makes me feel that much better at the end of the day. Honestly, you watch, our smart watches these days and you can see all of these steps that you're making. It also does feel good. Okay, so how important is the mental aspect of physical activity? Because the two, like I said earlier on, they're connected.
100%. So I think the biggest problem we all have as humans is we rely on motivation to stay doing the activity, whether it's exercise or getting up in the morning, doing chores. If I ask you now, did you want to make up your bed this morning? Or did you want to wash the dishes?
I didn't want to do it, but I did it because of accomplishment
discipline. And of discipline, because we rely as humans too much on motivation and we should rely on discipline more. Yeah. We should also be disciplined with our exercises. So yes, motivation is a big part of it, but be disciplined. Okay, I set a goal this week to exercise twice.
Yes.
So I'm going to be disciplined to do those two. to exercise sessions.
And I'll tell you this, and it's I think it's a common thing that's shared amongst so many people. At the start of a new year, a lot of us will set out those New Year's resolutions.
Do we all
I'm
keep
going
it?
to go to the gym every day. I want to look like Raul Demone. But it's not always possible to do that unless you're an athlete, right? Because you're not being
100%.
paid for it.
No.
But I think you are right to say setting those small goals, but celebrating your small wins is quite something. So for me, for example, I've now decided to dedicate Saturdays, for example, because they're easier days for me to get some exercise in.
Exactly.
Saturdays, skip 2 days, maybe go on a Monday or a Tuesday. It's small things like that. It's not just for kids and for parents, right? It's for for parents, it's for the whole family. Correct?
All family, all ages. Being active is for everyone, from, like you said, from being a kid up until elderly individuals as well.
Movement, it is such a broad area of our lives, and it's what enriches us to be able to be disciplined and to achieve the things that we want to on a daily basis. And that's why we're hanging out with Renato De Lange, who is a biokineticist, telling us all about the importance of this. Love it.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show. And of course, we are continuing our discussion on Global Move for Health Day and what it all entails. Now, of course, with exercise and movement comes the unfortunate possibility of injuries. Yes, injuries. Now, with us this morning is biokineticist for Stellenbosch Football Club, Renato De Lange, who is sharing some of the most common injuries and, more importantly, how to prevent such injuries. So good to have you with us this morning.
It's great to be here, thanks.
And I mean, I'm sure you see every single injury. I'm sure Tabisa told you about it. With Raul, we see him in his athleticism. He's always complaining about a neck injury, about a torn ligament, all of that. But what are some of the common injuries that you see and that you have to treat?
Yeah, so like you said, fortunately I work at a club, so the most common injuries I see there, if it's joints, it's usually ankles and knees, and if it's soft tissue, it's usually calves, groins, and hamstrings. That is also position dependent. If it's a goalkeeper, of course, we'll have more shoulder injuries, but outfield players generally have those injuries. If we go to general public, it's an array of things. It also depends on age. Then if younger athletes get different type of injuries to older grannies and grandpas, because they generally fall and break little bones and stuff like that. But it all depends on what cohort of people you're looking at.
But the thing is, athletes and we ourselves, we need to move. So how do we prevent injuries from happening?
Yeah, so I'm a very, very big believer that you can't prevent injuries, but you can reduce the likelihood of getting or sustaining an injury. So, for an example, regularly stretching or doing your mobility or strength training, because we can't just rely on our daily activities to get us through life or to not have us get an injury. So at the club especially, we focus a lot on strength training and exposing the players to the activity that will reduce them getting the injury. So of course they have to play football. That's the main thing they have to do. But it's a lot of load on their body. So that's why we do the strength training. That's why we do the extra running. So same if a person on the street or even you, if you want to go run the comrades in the next few years.
Which I won't do, but I'm glad that you are hyping me up for that.
But you need to train for it. You can't just tomorrow decide you want to go do it. Then most likely you'll end up with an injury. So it's again conditioning and exposing your bodies to the extremes so that you'll reduce that likelihood.
Friends and I were actually laughing over the weekend saying the older you get, the more prone you are to injury. Because after 30, you just turn your head or you look at something and then there you have an injury.
It's all downhill. Yeah.
At what age would you say we're more prone to getting these types of injuries?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. So in your teens, you're also likely, or the likelihood is higher to get an injury, and in your 30s up, especially for sportsmen and sports individuals as well. So in your teens, of course, from let's say 13 to 18, 19, you go through a growth spurt. Of course, all of us grow at different rates, but there's a period called your peak height velocity, which you grow the fastest. So what just happens is your bones grow faster than your muscles and your tendons and everything. So you're just more likely to get an injury. So those players or individuals need to just focus more on mobility and stretching, and the coaches or the conditioners, biokineticists, whatever you want to say, just need to keep that in mind. And then on the other side of the spectrum, especially in sports players and individuals, if they get above the age of 30, then that's a big contributing factor to sustaining an injury. Also, they've most probably played 10, 15 years, so they've most probably had an injury or two before. So those two things, age then 31, 32, and then having that previous injury, really increases your chance of getting injured.
So the next time someone's going to ask me or I ask someone, does 30 hurt? Yes, it does actually hurt. And then this is where you come in with regards to setting up a recovery plan. How well or how important is it to have a recovery plan once you have been injured?
Yeah, so that's also a very good question and very important. So when you have an injury, of course, there's a natural physiological response in the body that causes inflammation at the injury site. Okay, and that generally lasts 3 to 7 days, which is normal. But that injury that inflammation, can be prolonged. And we don't want prolonged inflammation because it has its goal for that period at the start, but then the healing process must continue. And we as, like I think we spoke earlier, when we are injured, we sometimes get depressed or demotivated. And what do? We go home, we sit and we have junk food. We have horrible things, we don't want to do everything. And that then prolongs your injury time or your time off the field or not doing what you love. So it's so important to just have good hydration, good nutritional strategies, and good physical and mental recovery strategies. So I would say physically focusing on stretching, whatever the bio or the physio or the doctor has prescribed for you in that period of time. And then mentally also spending time with your family, spending time with loved ones, things like that will also just get your mind off the current thing. So not just resting, but also, like I said, doing all the other things.
Okay, we're going to keep you here for a bit longer. Mananta de Lange is not going anywhere. We're still talking about Global Move for Health Day. More of that after this.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso indeed, and you are back in time as we continue our conversation with biokineticist for Stellenbosch FC, Mananta de Lange. He is with us for one last time on this Global Move Health Day. Now, we have spoken about the importance of physical activity as well as injuries and injury prevention. And working with professional athletes, it provides Mananta with some behind-the-scenes insight as to how physically fit they are and what sets them apart from the rest of us. I'm so excited to have this chat with you. Now, when it comes to these pro athletes that you get to work with and, when it comes to their conditioning, what sets them apart from the average Joe like myself?
So I would say the biggest thing is they get paid much more than we do.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, but yeah, so they get, like I said, their job is to train every day. So their job is also not just to train, but to recover. So where we would go maybe have an 8 to 5 or whatever job, in that time they have to eat properly, they have to train and they have to recover, where, like I said, we would not have all that time to do that. Because they have to be ready to perform on weekends, because that's inevitably where it's make or break for them. So the week leading up to the weekend, of course, it's very, very important. Where for us, I think every single day it's a bit different, but for them, that is very, very important.
That is their core focus. I love that you've put that into perspective. Now, how sustainable is it for them to, perform at that level? I mean, match days, a match is 90 minutes long? That is quite to be able to be at that fitness level. What kind of training is involved with that? How are they able to perform for that amount of time?
Yeah, so of course the season can span anything from 8 to 9 months or 10 months, depending on the league and the country and all of that. But a very good pre-season is important to, again, expose, like I said earlier, the players to what they're going to be exposed to within the season. If players don't take, especially that seriously, then they'll break down somewhere in the season. Like I also mentioned, if they don't take the week in, week out seriously, like the recovery or the training or the gym sessions or whatever you want to say seriously, they're not going to be able to sustain for the whole season. Look at someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. Why can he still play at 37? He can still sustain that level of fitness and that level of quality because he's been disciplined his whole life and he's focused on all the things we've mentioned. He's focused on getting the right nutrition, getting the right recovery, training regularly, exposing his body to all types of exercises and everything that, like I said, you would be exposed to in a football game.
That is amazing. And I mean, you've spoken about recovery time and time again, and we're now going to focus on that. As much as conditioning and fitness is very important, so is the recovery process. I wanted to know from you, what exactly after a game does a recovery entail? Because I always have a bit of a giggle when I go hiking with friends and then their watch says to them, 3 days recovery.
Exactly, yeah. So all sports are different, and of course for us, a recovery is going to be a bit different than for an athlete. But for athletes especially, there's various modes of modalities of recovery that we do. So one would be if we have a game, let's say in the next few days, we'll do ice baths. That of course just helps with the pain and all of that, and also circulation and just getting all that, the gunk out of the muscles, but it helps a lot with that. Another thing would be compression pants. Something else would be massages. I know we all like massages. Other thing would be light cycling or, like I said, going for a light jog. All of those things are a form of aerobic recovery. So then other forms, I would say, would like I said, be nutrition. Nutrition is also very important in the days after, like say, a big match or something, to get the right food in, whole foods, all of that, less junk food, like I've already mentioned. And then I've also said sleep. Sleep is especially for athletes, sleep is very important. Now, what makes it difficult is traveling. Now, we might play in Polokwane. Now, we just spoke about recovery, but now the recovery is difficult because we have to still drive back to Joburg, then fly to Cape Town. But anyways, there is times in the day, like I said, that are being paid to recover and train, so to find those things. And like I always say, very, very important for me is to take time away from your job as well. Go spend time with your family, all of that, just to distract you from your sport, and that also helps to mentally recover.
And that is so important, that holistic approach. Now, how much has technology been able to help you help these athletes?
Massively. So sports science has grown a lot over the past 10, 15 years, where I think at the start, everyone was trying to find their feet, but technology has really, really helped us a lot. So there are various also modes and different types of technology that we use, but to monitor external load on players, we use GPS monitoring, which they wear for every training session or every running session and every match. And that gives us an indication of what do they do in training, and then prescribing loads for the week, and also what they do in a game. As I mentioned, it's then easy to prescribe and keep them injury-free if we know what they're doing and what they need to do and what they don't need to do. There's also other things. I'm fortunate enough to work at a place called Stellenbosch Academy of Sport, which has an array of different equipment and technologies that help. Sparta, Vold, all of that really helps check for musculoskeletal scores and gives us also an indication what players need to work on and what can also help prevent this injury. So technology has, like I said, has really grown in the past few years and has been a massive, massive impact in my department, especially in helping me as a biokineticist and also the sport.
Oh, isn't it amazing? And times like this where I'm like, yes, for technology, just the way it's able to take athletes to that next step.
100%.
Mananto, thank you so much for joining us today, especially on Global Move Health Day. I hope you have some plans to get a little bit of movement in. We're not the pro athletes here, but hopefully just a 15-minute walk or a 30-minute gym session is what you can do to also be part of Global Move Health Day.